derails their thinking. It has really dampened the enthusiasm. And then your conscience, let's forget about conscience. That push, that urge to be upright has totally gone, it has waned down. You know, that constant, I want to stand unique. I want to stand out. I want to be a journalist that people will look at and say, ah, this guy oozes with integrity.
Okay.
And so it has totally eroded. Now everybody is scrambling, not everybody. Most journalists are scrambling to impress the paymaster. So in doing that, they tend to over-criticize even when the facts and issue are before them. They tend to criticize to impress a certain Mr. Politician or a certain businessman because they want NGO. Or NGOs because they want their payday. So, but we still have a few journalists who are holding their heads above water.
Yeah. In
the practice itself, I feel that we need to hold back, take an introspective perspective to this. Look inwardly and say, we need to start projecting and start. When we talk about criticism, it's not always good to come out to criticize. Let's look at journalism from the developmental
perspective. What I'm saying.
Because one, we are a developing nation. If we keep criticizing, the people who do this good might see us as ungrateful and then refrain from making any developmental stride. And so it's a very difficult one.
Yeah. Now, you know, a lot of people misunderstand the word criticism. That is one area that most of us who had English as our first love. You know, when we talk of literary criticism or journal media criticism, really, journalism, you're looking at when you say this thing is good, it's criticism. When you say this thing is bad, it's criticism.
That's also criticism. Yeah.
For you, what they're talking about, destructive criticism. Constructive means that you're able to look at, of course, you know the media templates for what is news. You must have balanced views. You must have objective, must be factual. The issue of accuracy, the issue of the issue of accuracy, the issue of national interest, the issue of truth, the issue of prominence, a lot of issues, human angle interest and all that. All this must come into play. But one other aspect before we go to another story that we really have to look at in strictly from the professional point of view is the fact that journalists have had a way. In the past, NUJ used to go on on tour to assess developments in various states. And it came to a point where NUJ stopped it because people were using it. Remember when Governor Dele was giving a golden governor?
Yes.
And all that.
They all
exactly. So they were going around collecting money and, you know, like you talk about corruption. It's a very big issue.
Brown envelope.
Exactly. So NUJ banned it, and they said, okay, Guild of Editors came up. They said, okay, what we do is we tour states to see what they are doing. At the end of every year, we issue communique, on developmental strides of states. But it appears that at the point, some governors are beginning to take it as their right. So they're always in a hurry to invite NUJ, invite Guild of Editors to come. And today, Guild of Editors is being very, very careful. When we go and we dine and do inspection, we take more time, and that's what it should be. Journalists take more time to say, these are the areas you must do well. These are the areas you've left undone. So be very critical enough, be focused, and face the issues as they are. Yeah, let's take so we'll go to the next
one. So quickly, it's not out of place for the press secretary to point out those very glaring issues right there. I feel that the journalists in Nigeria, the game will be raising up. People will begin to look at these issues from a developmental perspective. And the more we do that, the more we bring a lot, the more we encourage government to do more. It's not every day. It's not to say that you shouldn't criticize. No. Nobody is saying you shouldn't criticize. But constructive criticism is key to enable government to move further and deliver dividends of democracy.
It's very interesting. Akwa Ibom is doing well, really. If you go there, if you know what you used to be, so it's not a lie.
Yes.
And the realism is there, and the objectivity is there.
I was telling somebody that you know, without bias, I see you're overtaking Port Harcourt as a one of the finest metropolitan city.
Finest. Yes. I like the word finest.
Yes, in the south. And this is no. I'm a true Port Harcourt person. I'm a River State person. But Uyo is becoming very.
No, the speed.
I mean, the speed with which the city is developing, the government of Akwa Ibom State doing the best it can to attract foreign investments. Watch out for Akwa Ibom State. Yeah,
they are doing well. Well, I think that the applause is coming to Akwa Ibom based on the fact that from a very rustic, rural, sleeping village, it has become a state capital that can be envied. And no city has developed so fast except Abuja. That's the only city that has been so fast.
Yes.
No city has had that history of speedy development like Uyo, except maybe Abuja. Let's go to the next story. The federal government has urged miners in the country to strictly adhere to proper licensing procedures before commencing operation, vowing to implement stringent actions against illegal miners. The Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dr. Dela Lake, said this on Thursday during a meeting with licensed mineral holders, laterite and sand operators in Kaduna State. According to the minister, after securing their mining license, the operators also had to obtain a permit, stressing that a permit to mobilize to the site is a letter that will introduce you to the state and local government as well as communities through their traditional ruler, making mining activities smoother. The minister, who was represented by the acting zonal mines officer, Mr. Kutman Ali, urged the operators in Kaduna State to endeavor to clear their outstanding debts promptly. Highlighting the financial obligations, Alake revealed that miners and operators across the country owe the federal government over 2 trillion, with Kaduna State alone accumulating a debt exceeding 300 billion. Mining. And when you look at this issue of mining, it has become something very important. And the minister has been, since he was appointed, has been talking. A lot of
doing
people say,
his best.
Yes. A lot of people say he's playing to the gallery, but I think that he has been putting structures in place. And I'm much more interested in the fact that he has this mining corporation. That's
Dela Lake, if you look at his resume, you look at his CV, you note that he's a very meticulous person. If you follow his track record. But I'm going to say, I said that to say this. The problem we have in the country is regulation. It's not whether we do not have laws to effectively checkmate some of these things. It's regulation, how to implement those laws to the letter. Let's move away from mining a bit and use the oil and gas as a sector to give an example. In Niger Delta alone, the army had discovered over 125 illegal mining sites. Draw inference from that and go into mining.
That's solid mineral.
Yeah, yes. Now go into solid mineral. That's mining.
Yeah.
And see that mining has less technology to, for an individual.
It's easier, yeah.
It's easier to go into. I mean, look at petroleum. I mean, fossil fuel, hydrocarbon. See how technical it is. And Nigerians found a way to see how we can illegally refine crude oil. And see the number of persons who went into illegal refining. And then you start to gauge what's happening in the mining industry.
Enough.
A lot of
illegal
private individual had gone into mining. If you raise, those illegal investors raise a bit of money, gather some people, dig holes, and start mining illegally. And so it will not stop now. And this is a way of filtering away our natural resources.
Yeah, a lot of people have argued that the problem with mining in Nigeria is the Mining Act, which gives the natives, the landlords, a lot of leverage. You must talk with the chiefs, traditional rulers, you must talk with the landowners, agree with them, and then you go to local government. Sometimes most investors end there. It's unlike what you have in petroleum, where the miners, the explorers just come to exploit oil, and then they invite the villagers, and pay them what they call land rights, for cassava and all that. We don't have any rights. We don't have any form of negotiation. But in the north, these traditional rulers...
You know, the viability of mining was muted for a very long time.
Yes.
It was. So we didn't know how valuable it was.
So the Mining Act was very flexible.
It was very flexible. So people did not know the importance of... It was only when the petroleum industry, the crude oil hit rock bottom, was when we started looking for alternative means of earning foreign exchange. And then mining came to... So we're beginning to redefine what the laws were in the past. And I'm sure the Constitution Review Committee that is expected to submit its report by 2025 had included some of these factors and angles that we're looking at now into what is going to be reviewed. But above all, we have issues with regulation.
That's the point I'm making.
We have issues with regulation. We do not have issues with making laws. We have very fine laws, but the implementation is what is the problem.
But when you have an act that is vulnerable to abuse, that is where the problem lies. That's why a lot of commentators are talking about the Mining Act in Nigeria. It has given leverage to community people to think that they own. And they invite some of these foreigners, the Chinese people, they come, they mine without bothering about the hazards associated with it.
You know, that's the reason why some people feel that some region in Nigeria might be more valued than the other. The Niger Delta people will feel hard done by because their resources, you place heavy regulation on them, and you just filter it away with minimal profit coming to the host communities
and surface rights. So
when people begin to feel that you value one region bigger than the other, you might not give them, you might not blame them too much. But moving forward, I see a regime change. I see a change in modus operandi now. Now that the eyes of the federal government have channeled to mining, knowing that it can offer an alternative. It is an alternative to oil and gas. It is an area that will witness in the next 5 years a total turnaround. You will see before us that federal government will take a total control of the mining sector and make it more profitable without also losing sight of the locals and not causing problems here and there. I'm beginning to see a situation where we're going to shift a bit from the mono economy that we presently have in Nigeria to a multi-dimensional economy where mining and agriculture will be. But mining now is looking very promising. And if we don't get it right now, if we don't get, in fixing the laws that will be beneficial to all and that every Nigerian, not an exclusive few, then that is where the problem will be. Get it right now, and it will be El Dorado.
There has to be equity in terms of the way you treat, those who own the land where these resources are coming from. And the way you treat Niger Delta people should also be the way you treat the North.
True.
And the West, where you, even North Central, where you have mining. Even Southeast, you have mining, coal in Enugu.
Yes.
Limestone in Calago and all that. These are
bitumen in Calabar.
These are very veritable resources. Even here, you're talking about mining, you're talking about sand. That one degrades environment. We're talking about sand miners and those who mine laterites and all that.
And all that.
They're all part of the whole process of solid mineral. Because what we talk about solid mineral is not only about gold and all that. When you over mine some of these other resources like sharp sand, laterite, concrete, and all that, it used to be an issue in Obiakpo local government. Because one thing about such mining is that you are abusing the aquatic environment. For example, when you over mine sand like you do in Yenegua and all that, you are depleting the marine environment, the marine lives, because these animals, fishes and all that, lay eggs in the sand that you are excavating. It's part of what Alaka is saying. But I'm surprised that the federal ministry will now begin to collect revenue from such minings. I thought their own, when you talk about mining, revenue from mining by federal government, it should only end in limestone and all those sophisticated kind of mineral resources that are very deep. But something like laterite, why should it be business of federal government?
You know, I've always said it. The business of mining and its regulation had been muted. The importance had been muted for a very long time. We're beginning to learn. I'm sure that in time to come, a lot will be unveiled in terms of what the regulation should be, what is more important. How are those? There are few things that we don't see as important. For instance, you mentioned laterite. You mentioned quartz. There's you know, I'm a geologist.
Yes.
There are minerals that are less known to us now. And,
that was their first love.
Yes. You know, less known to us now. That we will see their importance in the future. And I'm hoping that, like that's what I said. I said, let's begin to prime the laws now so that it will not, for any reason, make other regions feel less respected, make them feel cheated out or something. So the moment we put that together, it is going to afford us the ground for the lifting of our economy and making sure that everybody is okay and no agitations about it.
Yes, you know, the subnationals have always quarreled with the federal government over the issue of what should be the area of responsibility when it comes to revenue generation. And sometimes I begin to wonder, some areas that are mentioned in this mining thing that the minister is talking about, I thought belonged to Ministry of Environment, because I used to know about the Green Book in River State, where they're talking about sand mining and all that. I thought that they were within the purview, by law, within the purview of the subnationals, the states, and all that. You see, some of these laws need to be reviewed so that we won't continue having issues with federal government in terms of who should collect what revenue and who should not collect what. Because the emphasis of what Alaka is saying there is revenue derived from these resources.
You know, the problem had always been greed. Some people know what the terms and conditions are, but we feel like we are not getting more. The people, I'm going to use Nasarawa State, for instance. I remember when a certain company, is it Nasarawa, one of these northern states, where a certain Chinese company came in and they had one backyard arrangement that they were going to mine, and this is the percentage they're going to take to the state, and the federal government warned. I was in Zamfara or one of those states.
Yeah.
The federal government warned, you can't do this without the authority of the federal government. And it went on. The governor came out vehemently and said, no, we can do this. It's our resources. We mine and we pay revenue to the federal government and all of that. The moment we give in to such things, it becomes a very big problem. There are states like Bayelsa State who fails. I remember when the Niger Deltans were agitating for resource control, and what the case became later and how the federal government handled it. If not well handled, the problem is not that we do not have laws. We do have the laws, but people are trying to circumvent. Not just people are trying to walk through the back door
to get what they want.
Because it favors them.
But now, I think also there's need for us to review some aspect of the law to empower the states to generate revenue. You know, when we talk about a convoluted federal structure, where you do not have a fiscal federalism, where you don't have a situation where the states can generate their own resources, and you have this problem of exclusiveness, and you know, you have exclusive lists, you have concurrent lists. I hear residual lists by lawyers say no longer exist because it's almost not there, because the states have almost taken over the residual list. Because you ask yourself, what is residual list? Is it market? Is it public health, which the state has taken over, and all that? So now the point is that when you talk about resource control, you also talk about fiscal federalism, where states are allowed to explore their own resources
within their
boundaries. And because I'm worried how sand mining could also be one of the be in the list of what federal government should be taking revenue from. Because he was talking about Kaduna State, and people are sand mining and concrete and laterite and all that. I thought mining laws stopped at those serious mining, gold and all that. Well, I think that's the much we can take on this. Well, that's the much we can take for this half hour. I think there has to be standardization and proper regulation of who should mine what.
On both ways.
Both
I keep saying.
Even communities.
You can't, yes, even communities.
Communities owning mining sites.
So if you're talking about mining, let the regulation and the equity be drawn from oil and gas to mining to different wherever your area of strength is, there should be a consensus as to what the states are getting, what the locals are getting, and it should be equilibrium.
Exactly. Well, that's as much we can take. We'll go on a short break. When we come back, we continue with the narrative. We'll have interesting stories for you in the next segment. Don't go away.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on-spot news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, social economy.
Welcome back. It is still Press Roundtable coming to you live from the Garden City, from the stables of Atlantic Television Network. Bill Cosby Jones is still here in the studio. Now, the next story talks about the Capital Territory. Yes, on weekend, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, has approved 30.9 billion for rehabilitation of 40 schools in the nation's capital. The Mandate Secretary, Education Secretariat, FCT Administration, Danlan Ihayo, disclosed this in Abuja Thursday. Ihayo, giving a breakdown of the fund, said 13.3 billion has been approved for the renovation and rehabilitation of 40 schools, which will be completed in 100 days. Added that 13.1 billion was also provided for an accelerated whole school rehabilitation approach, beginning with 18 schools. The Mandate Secretary said 4 schools would also be renovated in the second batch of the whole school rehabilitation approach at 4.5 billion. He listed the schools as Government Science Technical College, Wale, Government Science Technical College, Maitama, Government Secondary School, Kuje, and Government Secondary School, Wuse, 2. Well, we're talking about what the minister is doing, and from this story you can see the structure of the Federal Ministry or Federal Capital Territory Administration. The Mandate Secretary are like commissioners.
You know, I was thinking aloud. I saw one story about the FCT and the minister, and I laughed. I wanted to ask, I was asking a person, the last Buhari administration, was there a minister for FCT? And the person laughed. What did you ask? I said the present minister for FCT is
ubiquitous. It's ubiquitous. That's the word.
Makes the news more than the governor. I'm happy that if a minister matches words with action, it will gladden my heart, and if it will engineer development in the FCT. The Federal Capital Territory of Nigeria, by far, is the most developed enclave, most developed area in Nigeria. The schools are very important, but again, is it the most important thing in the FCT? By order of priority. Now, we have talked so much about the insecurity in the Federal Capital Territory.
Should education be allowed to rest?
No,
because
hold
of
on. I'm coming.
Like Lechema used to say, education cannot wait for any other.
Education
cannot wait for any other type of development.
What happens when you have a insecurity on the rise and people having the best schools? These kids will be kidnapped every week, and what happens then? Is it not a negative on the part of development? I understand the fact that the president had warned all the ministers to raise their game, but again, are we not chasing the wrong priorities? Are we not chasing the wrong
by rehabilitating schools?
No, but rehabilitating schools when there are more important issues to handle.
I don't accept that. I think that the point is that when the issue of insecurity came up in the Federal Capital Territory, the Federal Minister of Capital Territory came up with ways and means, and yet taking action. The important thing is looking at every sector in a system and taking actions that are visible, that people can see.
There's a problem.
And those actions are policy based on policy trust. So that could help to abate that phenomenon. And so education is very important, because if the people in Federal Capital Territory are not as educated as their counterparts in the states, then they will be behind the century.
True. Without sounding insensitive to the education, but with all due respect, Abuja is becoming overpopulated. I'm beginning to point out areas that needs urgent attention.
In addition to education.
No, hold on.
Not in isolation.
We will talk about education.
Okay.
Abuja is becoming overly populated. I mean, areas like Karu, very close to Nasarawa, is populated already. Abuja is in dire need of offsprings, outskirts, towns, developing so that it can shoulder the responsibility, it can shoulder the burden of overpopulation. The reason why we're having this increase and this surge in crime is because every Dick, Tom and Harry is coming to the metropolitan to look for one end of living or not. So if you talk about education, Abuja does have the best of schools as we speak. Now, as we speak.
In the rural Abuja.
In the rural
Have you been to Gwagwalada and all those areas?
I have been to Gwagwalada. I have been to Nyanya. I mean, if you compare schools in Nyanya to schools I see here in River State, let's not make that comparison. Yes. They will say that there's the FCT. But there are other major issues. Now, one major issue that I've seen as a Nigerian in Abuja that should have taken the front seat is the relocation of some of these what's it called? Some of these headquarters of big NGOs like UNESCO, like to smaller satellite towns, relocate them and decongest these areas like Maitama that already overpopulated.
Those multilateral organizations.
If you those are issues we were expecting for the FCT minister to embark on his first year. Maybe next year we'll start looking at, you talk about billions to renovate schools.
Well, the people, when Abuja residents were laying their needs on the table before the minister, one of those meetings, they talked about education.
The most important issue discussed in that meeting was security.
They talked about security, not recently, I mean from the beginning.
Okay.
They talk about security because of one chance phenomenon which was ravaging Abuja, one chance issue. They talked about linking the rural areas, giving them proper routes,
developing the satellite towns. I just mentioned it now.
They talked about transportation. That's some of the issues.
No, you can't develop the satellite towns without giving them roads.
Then they mentioned education, that their education in the rural population seemed to be lagging behind. Because what we see when we go to Abuja are elite schools in Maitama and those Gariki or those bigger areas. And that will begin to give you a bigger picture, of what is happening. You remember when Amechi was developing some of these schools? He first of all took care of the schools on the roads, Ikwe Road to Port Harcourt to Warri and all that, Aba Road. And a lot of critics came up to say that what he was doing was eye service. As people are passing, they would think that we have great schools in Port Harcourt. So he changed gear and decided to go into rural areas. It is that same realm that people are saying what you are seeing in Abuja as schools are not the Abuja. The rural areas have issues.
Let's begin to break it down.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, let's break it down. The demand is
Now, yeah, that's got to be elastic because we're going to the next story.
So if you, when I'm making, that's coming.
But that's a different narrative.
I'm coming. And facility, money sunk. I mean, money that governors sunk into that project went.
Yeah.
If you develop roads, rural areas, whether you abandon the roads or not,
yeah,
roads do not need major rehabilitation.
Okay. Now, what you're saying is we should be
our priority. We should
and
count one before we count two.
okay, there should be integral development. There should be collective. There should be issues to be prioritized. But I do not believe that the social sector is one of those sectors that can be neglected. Now, let's get to the next story. Education, health are very important. They are very paramount in any governance.
No doubt.
No doubt.
Yes. Between one and two, one should take the leading role.
Okay, let's take the last story. It has to do with a controversial story of moving some corporate organizations to Lagos. The Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Kayamo, says the Nigerian government spends 1 billion naira on duty tour allowance, DTA, and air tickets for Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria. Officers who travel back and forth from Abuja to Lagos annually. Kayamo disclosed this on Thursday in a statement to newsmen, clarifying his 500 million fan workers DTA comment. According to him, in 2023, fan workers spent 493.6 million on DTA and 451.059 for air tickets. The amount came up to 493.6. Aside from the air tickets, which he mentioned, according to him, on quote, amounted to 451.05. The minister insisted on going ahead with the federal government's decision, that's where it's landed, to relocate fan headquarters to Lagos despite opposition from certain quarters. Recall that on January 19, 2023, Kayamo announced the relocation of fan headquarters from Abuja to Lagos. All these narratives are to support this movement. That Nigeria was spending so much on DTA. Yeah. So we need to stop that expenditure and take them to where they need to be.
I think it's about time we begin to streamline what we want and what we don't. Yeah. We've always said that we need to cut costs. Government needs to cut costs. And somebody was out there analyzing how the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu wants to cut out the north and underdevelop it by moving critical infrastructure from Abuja to Lagos. And I laughed. The same person will come out to say, the government was chasing bogus and over-bloated budget to run its regime. And it's funny how this happens. The minister, Kayamo, had explained that they spend more money airlifting personnel from Abuja to Lagos, that it will be worth the while if these, and it's not all the departments, a few departments that will reduce the cost of this DTA to be moved to Lagos, so that from the check, from data that they have, that will be, do you know what 500 million naira would do to Nigeria, would do to our economy? It will purchase one or two things. It will regulate one or two things in the aviation sector. But moving forward, I think we should look beyond ethnicity. It has really denigrated what we have achieved as a country.
Regionalism.
Regional favoritism. Bias in our thinking. The president comes, it's from the southwest, he wants to favor everything. Lagos, we throw all kinds of conjecture. They want to make Lagos independent, that's why they are doing all of this. But we seem to have forgotten that there was a certain Muhammadu Buhari who nearly moved the entire naval base to Kaduna. So let's begin to eschew all of these biases, and the quicker we do that, the better for us. if we have a cogent and verifiable reason why these activities need to happen, it will say the cogent and verifiable reason I want to say is this: if we do this, it will better our economy. Is it verifiable? Yes. Let it be done, regardless of where it's moved to. I don't know this hue and cry, this cry about.
What about the logic that, okay, if you are doing that, move all agric facilities, headquarters, the Ministry of Agric to the North Central. Move everything that has to do with marine, oil exploration, all the headquarters.
No, but
to the Niger Delta.
It's not about the. It's not about. It's not about.
So some people talk about equity in distribution of, facilities and operations of the federal government. If you look at that critically, and he's justifying that move now, there could also be justification in other facilities moving out of Abuja.
What could the justification be? Is it viability? I mean, we're talking about viability.
In location of industry, you talk about nearness to raw material. Don't you talk about that?
True. True.
Yeah.
So if you talk about nearness to raw material, and you have the facts together, knowing that, you see, we should eschew sentiment in all of this.
Okay.
It's very important. That's what I'm preaching. We should eschew sentiment in looking critically at sectors that or issues that will bring us the economic viability that we talk about. If I move up tomorrow and I'm the president, I see that in Otweke, in Bayelsa State, there is a running ministry that can generate a lot of money. I do not mind moving the headquarters from Abuja to Bayelsa State.
That's the point.
Because at the end of the day, at the end of the annual budget, I am sure that what the decision I took was going to benefit us economically. That should be the paramount
objective.
Yes, at the back of everybody's mind. So, we should move past this.
And most importantly, we're talking about bringing down the cost of governance. And if there are ways and means this can be done, let it be. But the problem is that Nigeria is such a divided country. Everything is done, everything is seen from a point of mutual suspicion. And people don't look at issues from purely dispassionate, progressive perspective, as this case. Look at the justification there. They seem very plausible and possible and acceptable. But a divided country that we have talked about over time, and a country where people are talking about equity, fairness in distribution of resources, and in terms of development too. This cannot easily flow. And it becomes imperative that if you're looking at cutting down on governance, we should look beyond this kind of objective. We should look at costing down on the retinue of government functionaries, their retinue of aides, their travel allowances, the monumental and huge, humongous, kind of expenditure that we see in the National Assembly, that we see from some government functionaries and all that. Even the kind of expenditure that you see within the Aso Rock Government House kitchen alone, Aso Rock kitchen, Office of the First Lady. Now today in Kogi State, we are talking about Office of the Former Governor. They have created an office of the former governor in Government House in Kogi State. That is an institution that has been created that will have all manner of civil servants working in. Just as Nigerians have condemned the issue of having First Lady, Office of First Lady and all that. Yes, we need to cut down governance, but we're very careful. We should be circumspect not to tear the country apart.
Again, of course, I understand the angle the angle you're looking at it from, and how can we make progress if we consider all of these factors? A factor where before you chase a laudable project, you start looking at the variables. Does it suit this regional concern? Does it suit the various religious enclaves, religious organizations? Were my political godfathers appreciated and all of that? So it has made us hold stock in the middle without making any headway. Nigeria is a very big country. The only problem we have is dissenting voices because of religion, because of ethnicity, and I think it's about time we start showing all of those out of the table because of where we are now. if we need to make progress, all of those should be thrown out and then begin to look at things objectively. If we do not do that, we keep running in circles. We will not make any headway.
Well, thank you very much. I think that's much we can take on today's program, Press Roundtable. It comes to you, like I said, live every day, Monday to Friday, 7 to 8 p.m. And we'll bring brilliant minds like Bill Cosby Jones.
Thank you very much.
To come and dissect and give insights and perspective to trending news all the time. Well, thank you for being there. And next program is Let's Talk. And beyond Let's Talk, we're going to have the news at 9 p.m. That's our last global news. Don't forget, peace is the pathway to progress. Give peace a chance. Make peace your watchword. Peace is not the absence of war. It is with building blocks, deliberate as approach to development. My name is Bon Woki. Stay tuned for other programs. Don't get away.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today. Only on ATN.
People into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
You human trafficker.
Honorable